welcome to My Kind of Medicine. Today I'm talking with Astraeus Amori about his book, Psychedelic Sacred Sexuality. It's a really beautiful topic, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you. Astraeus is a pen name, but the man is beautiful. He's a physician and integrative medicine healer, an author, a planetary grid worker, and he's been doing this kind of stuff for 25 or 30 years. Before we get started, here's a disclaimer. The following is not advice, but simply a conversation. It's not intended to recommend exploring these substances in any way, especially where it's illegal to do so. As with anything put into the body, there's inherent risk with these sacred substances, and utmost care and consideration should be taken before consuming them, especially when combining them with the consciousness and sexuality of a lover or partner. Although the body is resilient and magical, it's also fragile in many ways. If you have any physical, mental, or emotional challenges or concerns regarding anything discussed here, please consult a physician or psychotherapist before proceeding. Also, before we get going, to help this channel grow, I'd be incredibly grateful if you would consider liking and subscribing. And if something in this conversation strikes you, please comment on it too. These simple little acts really help. And as this channel grows, it'll help me create more consistent content. With that in mind, I hope you enjoy this conversation on a topic that delves into one of the most fundamental levels of vulnerability and exploration of our reality: psychedelics and sacred sexuality. Enjoy. I'd like to start with a really broad spectrum question, which is, can you please tell people listening what your book is about?
Yeah. So I wrote my book over the course of a couple years with the intention of helping people connect more deeply to love and more deeply to their partners. And a lot of what I'm seeing in the world is very concerning. There's a lot of hatred, a lot of division. And when I go to these sacred places of oneness and my psychedelic journeys, and particularly with my lover, I just feel this amazing state of bliss and love for all. And I felt to myself over the years, how sad it is that so many people are not experiencing these beautiful states of love and bliss. And how can I help them share that element? And then I thought to myself, well, I could write a book, but as a physician, it's a pretty risky thing to do. Um, and eventually, over time, I decided, I just need to go ahead and get this book out there so that people will have a guidebook to help them find how to apply some of the psychedelics like psilocybin, even as far out as 2CB, to LSD, to San Pedro, to utilize it in a way that will allow them to safely and consciously, in the right set and setting, to achieve these amazing states of oneness and bliss. So the book manifested as both a guidebook, but also stories of erotica that I share from some beautiful, intimate moments that I've had with my partners. So it creates this element of science, spirituality, and deep love through the passages that I've narrated uh, on the erotica to give people a deeper dive in terms of what they could potentially experience and how they can experience it in a safe way. There's also a lot of information on drug herb interactions. So if somebody's on Prozac, is it safe for them to take psilocybin? Is it safe for them to do LSD or MDMA? Things of that sort. So there's a nice blend that will give them the information to safely move forward into their psychedelic journeys.
Yeah, beautiful. I think when I was reading the book, it reminded me when I was young, like I started working with entheogens and psychedelics very young in my life. So I have a long history of experience. And I used Arrowhead as my kind of go-to resource when I was younger. But I love
Mhm.
that your book is like a really consolidated, simple to read, organized. here's what this medicine or this sacred substance does. Here's my personal experience with it. Here's contraindications, durations, etc. I think it's a really useful thing for people who don't have experience. I've been blessed enough in my life to experiment with every one of the substances to some degree of depth that you have listed in main chapter heads. And it was
Mhm.
also really cool to see some of the additional ones towards the tail of the book that I had never thought about exploring. And that's something we'll definitely talk about that I think is really interesting. I thought some of these too were really interesting that they were in this book because they're not ones that I would at all think about with sexuality by itself. And you didn't have them in there, but it makes sense to me because everything affects everything. For example, I would never personally explore sexuality like with a partner on Aya or DMT. They're just too profound and too, that's just not how I perceive it.
Mhm.
But the rectification and the clearing of the self and the refinement of the self allows us to be more centered and balanced and bring a more true self to the sexual relationship aspect of life. So it makes a lot of sense that those kinds of medicines are in the book to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, from a DMT perspective, as you mentioned, um, working with the bufo-derived DMT, I think it can be impossible, obviously, because we're so off planet with that. Um, but following one of those ceremonies, I think it gives a couple an opportunity to integrate and have a deeper relationship. And I've done DMT from Bufo alvarius with my partner and have had that amazing experience of making love, an hour or two after that and being able to integrate it all later in the evening. And I think that's one way that it can be done. I think with the other DMT plant-based molecules, such as ayahuasca, that it's too sacred of a plant to be going into a sexual flow with it. But I think that as we do the work with Grandmother Aya, that we're able to bring those insights to grow the relationship and the depth of the relationship through what flows in from the cosmos to be shown to us in that relationship with our partners. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
so I think there are opportunities with DMT, but yeah, we have to kind of uh, be respectful of the boundaries of Grandmother Aya, and then we have to realize, the nature of DMT, particularly of the toad version versus the synthetic, which are fairly profound. And I do think that the synthetic vape application of DMT does allow, a lower dose kind of experience where one can hold their partner and go into that beautiful fractalized sacred geometric space, and we can hold our third eyes together and feel that state of oneness for brief periods of time, and that can be profound too. And then, following the dissipation of the DMT experience, then I think lovemaking can be more intimate and deep as a result too. Yeah.
I can definitely see that in that fractalized low dose DMT. Like I've been sitting in nature before and in that space it just felt so connected to the planet, to the bees and the birds and the fish and just the whole interconnectedness of everything. So I could see that just like sitting in yum or something like that and connecting could be really just a beautiful just moment together. I think that's a really interesting
Oh
idea I have
yeah.
not explored. Yeah.
And I would add that I'm glad you brought up nature. I mean, some of my most profound, deep experiences have been in nature, particularly with LSD with my partner and being in these beautiful mountain meadows and connecting to Mother Gaia in such a deep way that we just feel our root chakras, literally on fire. And then, making love on the forest floor or her being, holding on to a tree and making love from behind, that can be a profound experience too. I think that, um, So much of it is just being in flow with the medicine, allowing the set and setting of nature to amplify many of our senses, and then um, experience that love and bliss and connection to all that is, and being thankful and grateful for uh, being in that beautiful moment. And again, I mean, you were mentioning, how blessed you feel working with this medicine. That's exactly how I feel. I feel so blessed, and I want everybody else to have that blessing too. And much of this book is here's how you can find your blessings, you know, by utilizing some of these psychedelics, and many of them are cost effective and easy to obtain, like psilocybin. And hopefully, many of the other ones will become more affordable so they can experience those as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, psilocybin and paper and things like that, they're very inexpensive and profound. I'd like to
Mhm.
keep on the kind of the DMT
Yeah.
variations for a minute and say one of the things that has really served me as a human being uh, and in a relationship was I had an aya experience where the grandmother came inside of me and with her hands and just squeezed all the shame out of my body, all the shame from self, the things that weren't like our sub ideal in my life and in my life story,
Hmm.
and just got rid of that like energetic block, which allows the shungo or the column of light to kind of flow
Hmm.
more. So she squeezed all that out of me, and then I went back and laid at my mat, and she said, "Now that that's gone, let me show you how to organize power and allow power to flow where there is like that bottleneck."
Mm.
And that I feel has like really profoundly impacted my life for one, but just my ability to be present as a being, which is so important in relationship to sexuality, right? You need to be there and not in the
Yeah.
mind and not uh, thinking about anything that's I don't know. It's like being in flow state, right? And if we have energetic flow, then flow state's so much more possible.
Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful element of DMT and so many of the psychedelics, the way they can take our default mode network offline, allow us to be present in a timeless space with our lover. And I found that 12 hours can pass and it feels like it's been, just an hour because of that timelessness. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, being present, being, very connected and aware of our partners, of ourselves, and grounded. We can't get that very easily in a normal 3D state without these amazing molecules. And it's a real gift to allow us to take our minds offline and to go into those higher dimensions while at the same time connecting to Mother Gaia and connecting to our lover in such a deep way. Um, and yeah, DMT does that in a more pronounced way, and some of the other ones a little more subtle, but they all have that unique ability of taking that default mode network off, as Michael Pollan talks about, taking it offline and allowing us to be more present.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet with my partner, but I I imagine just the future whenever it's right and it happens is just being in the like Aya circle together. It's such a sacred space just to support each other in whatever comes. That itself can just I think unimaginably increase the bond level. Just being as a support and a witness and
Yeah, just being
I
in
think
circle, and you don't even have to be holding hands. I think just being
for
within
sure.
proximity is really um, key to feeling the vibrational energy of your partner and the people in the field around you. Uh, And
Mhm.
then, following the ceremony, I think just being able to hold your partner and integrate and feel into what you experienced is amazing too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my experience with sitting in circle and with friends and new friends, it creates a really significant bond with people, and that can just carry across time. Um, I'd like to talk to the people here with your insights about um, early in the book. You talk about kind of what's necessary to explore with these medicines in the self-conscious aspect. You have attributes here like open-mindedness, open-heartedness, and compassion, balance, energy, body, boldness, trust, and vulnerability. But I perceive that a lot of people have a lot of fear about altering the mind, being in control. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I do ketamine therapy in my practice, and the people that are coming in for the first ketamine session, for example, have a lot of fear, and it can be difficult to help them go into that place of trust and going to that place of being willing to be vulnerable. And to me, oftentimes it's like visualizing myself on an edge of a cliff with a wingsuit on and having the confidence to leap off that cliff, to soar, and then to, deploy my chute and land beautifully. So, um, I think in a lot of ways, when we're going on a psychedelic journey, whether it's ketamine or other molecules, we have to have that confidence, that boldness, that visualization, almost like a professional diver on the high board, kind of rehearsing through their mind. Okay, I'm gonna fly through and navigate this, and I may not know where I'm gonna go in the universe, but I'm just gonna be confident that I can soar through this, and there may be some rough spots, but I'm gonna breathe through it, and I'm gonna have trust in the people around me and the, secure set and setting that's gonna, allow me to have an amazing experience. Now, a lot of times what I'll do is I do a lot of sound bowl healing in the practice, so I may spin a crystal bowl on particularly like the third chakra. I think that can be really helpful right around the solar plexus, and then I'll help them do a little breath work. I'll have them do some visualizations, and then once I see their pulses coming down, and in a medical setting, I'm even checking their blood pressure. Everything's starting to go more parasympathetic rather than sympathetic. Then, I go ahead and drop them in with an intramuscular injection of ketamine. The same thing can be utilized in somebody that's anxious as they're going into a mushroom journey or MDMA journey, whatever it may be. I think the main thing is just having a facilitator or a therapist who can guide them through these processes, whether it's breath work, sound healing, etc., to prepare them for the launch. It's almost like, a SpaceX launch and, how do these astronauts feel comfortable in their seats, knowing they've got so many, you know, thousands of pounds of lift and all that explosive material below them. I mean, that's got to be something to wrap your head around too. So yeah, it's a process, and some people are wired much more tightly in terms of their anxiety levels. Some may come in with an anxiety disorder that we're treating, and those are the ones we really have to help them get in their body and be aware and use the breath. Yeah.
That's what I've seen too. Is it's we try to get out of the brain and shift down into the heart. So like the brain should be the servant, if anything, in the ceremony. I've sat with one meister who just says, good advice is to let the medicine flow and try not to think too much.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. And I often say that as well. Yeah, trust in the medicine, let it flow. I do have everyone set intentions, but I always let them know that, you know, it could go a completely different direction than the intention they set, which is often true. Um, and then while I'm doing the breath work, I may have them send light and love to themselves, to their heart in particular, um, and then to oftentimes connect and ground into Mother Gaia. So I may do some guided meditations, having them see kind of spiraling light going to the core of Pachamama and feeling her love. and support as they're getting ready to drop in. So there's a lot of really great techniques to help people reduce their anxiety and ground out. And I would say the majority of them, I just kind of intuitively feel into what they need. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really as a facilitating person, I think that's often what it is. It's like if we're present and we're not rigid, it's just like we have a big tool set and to oh this one applies. This just have that spider sense to see what people need to relax or to keep
Yeah. And
moving to the
sometimes
next
it's
thing.
even just holding their feet and grounding them that
Absolutely.
way. Or I
Absolutely.
might put a large crystal on their chest and allow them to feel the energy of that. Um, but yeah, yeah, you know how it works, and I think that's right. We just wanna be in flow with it and then kind of channel in what they need rather than have a prescriptive, predetermined means of this is the way I do it for everybody, I think it needs to be personalized and, intuitively channeled to their needs. And sometimes you need a second person, someone who's at their head, maybe holding a little light to their third eye, with a fingertip on their third eye, and somebody holding their feet at the other end. And that can be a really great balancing technique too.
Yeah, they it's popular, this phrase we've already heard today, which is set and setting, but I like the idea of set, setting, and skill. It's the whole thing, right? It's like experienced people in this, and this book is really made, like you say, in it for people who have uh, a moderate amount of experience with medicine. So after they've been held by facilitators and have experience with the substances, then it's more possible and responsible to be investigating these in that sexuality relationship way rather than the purely like the novel explorer kind of way. I mean, it's all
Right.
novel exploration, but as far as having an expectation of the general flow of a journey and the potentialities of it, because these medicines are so vastly different. It's like, like the word drugs, like alcohol and nicotine are completely different animals, just like 5-MeO and LSD are. They're just not even they all alter the frequency that we're dialed into, but
Hmm.
how is so different.
Yeah. Exactly. Everybody's going to have their own unique experience, and what I've described are the more general experiences that most people will obtain with these molecules, but everybody could have a completely different type of experience. And I think it is important that um, people that are exploring psychedelics with a partner that they've had a fairly long-term relationship with them already, that they've had at least 6 months of working with psychedelics on their own. So they're not just doing their first LSD trip together. Um, and then that way they have an idea of what they're going to experience, and they're prepared for, experimenting and seeing what it's like being in flow with their partner in that loving state on that molecule. But um, doing it as a first time, I think, is a risky thing, and I definitely recommend they work with a facilitator like yourself, become comfortable with psilocybin, become comfortable with MDMA or LSD before they then go and venture out with each other. So I'm sure there's going to be some people that just go for it, but it's potentially
Yeah.
risky.
One piece of advice I found in a sacred tantra workshop that I took, which I think could be really useful for people exploring things kind of all the time, because we all come to different experiences in different mind states with different levels of stress in our life or whatever's happening. And
Hmm.
and I was taught this really simple um, thing is FBI. And so before you start any action, fears, boundaries, and intentions.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's perfect.
just talk about it. Like, hey, I'm nervous about this. These are my hard no's, and and here's what I'd like to get out of this experience and try to aim at, and you share that together. And so it's this like act of transparent vulnerability that sets a frame or a container that adds to the safety of the experience emotionally with another person, when there's a level of trust being in vulnerable in sexuality, but all especially with when your mind and your heart are wide open.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, thanks for bringing up boundaries, Aaron. I think that's extremely important, and I talk a lot about that in the book. Setting hard boundaries with your lover in terms of how far you want to go, and particularly with MDMA because it opens us up and makes us want to be more intimate with our partner. And sometimes your partner may not be comfortable doing some of the crazy things that may come to mind during that particular journey. So you can kind of or you can set boundaries ahead of time, and then you can have some kind of sign language or you know a word that says, "Okay, let's stop here," uh, and go back to where we were. That way, at the end, you're not feeling any um, issue, distrust or anger towards your partner in terms of exceeding a boundary that was preset. Yeah.
Yeah, especially, I mean, people come with such a varied level of sexual trauma and distrust in general. Like humans are so we're so vulnerable in so many ways, and many people get taken advantage of throughout their life in different ways. And so when we're really highly open in these ways, to really have clarity that it's so important to respect and know, and there's no need for an explanation, just know is perfect, right? And I like to always say that with stuff ahead of time, but also same thing with like, because language can go away with a lot of these molecules. And so I always like to say early too that you don't need to explain yourself. Like maybe you just say hug or hand or
Yeah.
big spoon, or or you could just whatever it is, and
Yeah.
just make it very simple so that there's no need to try to explain where it's coming from, or it's not really possible often.
Right. Right. You're too astral to pull out a phrase or a sentence there. I like that. That's a great tip, Aaron. Very good. Um, and I think also as, experienced psychonauts, we all know that randomly we can have these periods of time where we're clearing stuff, and it could have been from a past life. It could have been from this life. We don't know where the heck it comes from, right? And we're just all of a sudden crying and having an emotional moment. And we have to be ready as a partner to hold that space. And it can just be simply putting your hand on their heart and being present for them. Um, it's not a space where if you're deep in the medicine, you're going to be able to do psychotherapy. But I think just simply being present is what you want to do, and realizing that that could come at any time. And many of us may think, okay, I've done hundreds of mushroom journeys and whatnot, and I've cleared everything, but surprise, sometimes it can hit you randomly. So it makes us humble, right?
Of course, yeah. Yeah, well, everything begins and ends in mystery,
Yeah,
especially ourself.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think that's really true. Going into this with no matter what our level of experience is with our own reality, uh, just humility and openness. I mean, that's one thing I score very high on in like attribute tests. I score, like, compared to the population, I score a 99 in openness, and likely
mhm.
you're very high there also.
Yeah. I think
Having
I'm
written
too
a
open
book like this.
sometimes, but so yeah, I've got to be 90 plus.
Yeah.
Uh,
And likely everybody reading your book is there too. And still it's we don't know, we don't get to know everything. And I think it's one of the beautiful things about plant medicines and sacred molecules and things is they add this level of just a shift where we don't really get to know where it's going all the time. And we're on, although we have a tremendous amount of agency, and the more neutral we come as a being,
Mhm.
the more we can navigate these spaces, they're still gigantic beyond comprehension.
Yeah, it really is, and it so deepens our relationship with Mother Earth, our ability to see her and protect her, deepens our relationships with our loved ones, and the greater community around us, and I think through more and more people working with psychedelics, I'm hopeful that we'll, reconnect to our more primal, loving nature and let go of our cell phones and social media and be able to be more present for each other, be able to be more loving and understanding, be able to achieve conflict resolution rather than going to find a lawyer, and talk things out. Right? I think that there's such a great need for that, and it's just sad when I catch the headlines and read the news to just see all the harm that people are causing to each other rather than trying to find reconciliation, forgiveness, and some kind of common ground to move forward in a space of love and understanding.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I've found just even in exploration of some of these recently, I had an MDMA kind of low dose long journey
Hmm.
where it was mostly just for me to kind of go inside myself, and I was really just exploring and just being with whatever came with my life. And my partner and I had this just really beautiful, heart open conversation. She wasn't on any medicine, but I was extremely tuned into my own reality and where I was out of balance as a being.
Hmm.
And we had just a long, maybe 2 or 3 hour conversation.
Hmm.
And she was so appreciative because my level of emotional intelligence was so high. And it really
Hmm.
allowed us to kind of reorient a few of our dynamics just in our
Hmm.
mundane reality, and that added a lot of closeness. So closeness in the sexuality through the medicine with nothing to do with the sexuality, just about the
Yeah.
heart relationship.
Oh my
And
God. And to me, MDMA is like the magic molecule that will help save relationships or help maintain relationships in that beautiful space as you're describing. You're in this flow of open, loving communication. So you may want to give your lover some feedback. I like this, but I don't like that. But it comes from a loving, heartfelt space. And then she'll do the same to you. You're maintaining this beautiful eye contact. And I will oftentimes share how beautiful my partner is, and she'll share the things that she loves about me, and it just makes our hearts explode. And oftentimes we just find ourselves doing nothing but like sitting in a yab yum position, and we're just holding each other, not making love, just holding each other, feeling our hearts connect. We'll put our third eyes together and we'll just feel this blissful oneness love that's just beyond orgasmic in and of itself. And um, with MDMA, oftentimes, if I'm doing the higher doses, like 150 or 200, it can make sexual performance somewhat of a challenge. It almost is like performance anxiety because it has that amphetamine sympathetic overdrive. So it can make it more difficult for guys to get a woody, which in a sense I kind of see as a good thing because then I can just be present and do that meditative yab yum. And then after 3 or 4 hours, if we're feeling up for it, everything's back and online and we can go into a deep state of love making. The other interesting element from a pharmacologic standpoint of MDMA is it can delay ejaculation. So you may find that you're making love for quite some time, which could be a good thing, but kind of torturing. But when you do have that orgasm together after you've been on MDMA, it's much, much, much more intense. I mean, it's like an atomic bomb going off because you built up all that um, Kundalini energy, and yeah, it's something to be experienced for sure. So for me, I would say my favorite medicine over the last couple years has been the combination of MDMA with psilocybin or MDMA with 2CB. And those two just pair together in ways that are beyond, and provide that element of deep connection to your lover, and an ability to clear anything that's on your chest or her chest, and allow uh, couples to move forward in a deeper, loving way. Yeah.
Yeah, those two combinations have quite a different time dilation, right? With the hippie flip or the psilocybin combo being shorter than the Nexus flip with the longer duration. But both like combinations, I think. I mean, all these things can be so beautiful. They really can. And
Yeah, and the candy flip, the MDMA LSD is good too, but that's a full day experience. You have to definitely prepare for that one.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the ones there's a few of them that I had never thought of because they're not really in the psychedelic realm that you had, but I'm kind of jumping here a little bit. But
Mhm.
the idea of we've all heard and know what oxytocin is as a hormone in our body, but to have that like through a physician um, amplified in your body, I thought that was a really interesting concept, and I'd love to hear a little bit of elaboration on that.
Oh, yeah. Oh my god. Amazing molecule. Now, the cool thing is MDMA and many of these other molecules will elevate oxytocin to a certain extent, as well as dopamine, obviously serotonin. So you get a nice kind of multi-level stimulation of the neurotransmitters from MDMA and psilocybin. But oxytocin, also known as the love hormone, we know it's produced when a baby is nursing on a mother's breast, and it helps increase bonding, etc. That deeper connection, love, bonding to the infant right after birth and continues thereafter. If we take it exogenously, in other words, as a sublingual tablet or a nasal spray, or you can even do it as an intramuscular injection, you can get a very similar effect. It's bioidentical, or the exact same structure as what's produced in your body when you get it from a prescribed um, perspective, from a compounding pharmacy. And so what I found with oxytocin is um, the sublingual is a really nice way to go. I think the dose is around 40 units, and you can take it by itself before you make love, and it creates this heart opening connection. Um, a little bit like MDMA, your heart rate will go up a little bit. You'll feel that opening of your heart. You'll feel a little bit of flushing with it is kind of the physiologic response from it. And then you'll have some increased sensitivity. So I found that my partner can, through tantric massage that I'm doing for her, can have nipple orgasms, which was a new thing that I was never able to achieve uh, in my prior relationships with um, other partners. But oxytocin seems to make it relatively easy, whether you're doing oral or IM. The intramuscular injection definitely gives you more of an opportunity to do that because it's more bioavailable. You can get higher concentrations than it going through your GI tract. But so you'll get the opportunity for gals to have nipple orgasms. I think other parts of the body can be stimulated and create an orgasmic response much more easily from oxytocin, as some of the psychedelics can do that as well. And then the other really great part is when you do have your orgasm, it's much more intense because for a guy, it makes a smooth muscle contract in the prostate much more intensely, so you feel a greater, more voluminous release there. And then for a gal, they get, particularly with a G spot orgasm, they get more of a vaginal contraction. And the uterus also contracts during orgasm physiologically. So, with those more intense contractions, it feels like a deeper, more intense orgasm with more Kundalini flow as well. So, it's a great adjunct or standalone to improving the um, sexual sensitivity and intensity of orgasms. So I definitely would encourage listeners to talk to their physicians, and if they can't, find a physician who's familiar with it or willing to prescribe it. Oftentimes, they can just go to a functional medicine physician like myself, or an integrative medicine physician, and they're going to understand this stuff. Your regular Kaiser docs and allopathic docs are not even going to know what you're talking about, other than oxytocin being used in labor and delivery to, induce contractions, also known as pitocin. Um, so they just know it from the um, labor deck pharmacologic and not from the sexual health realm. So, yeah, the other nice thing, Aaron, is you can add this in while you're kind of towards the end of an MDMA journey. So you're like, okay, I want to kind of boost my heart opening experience. You add in a little oxytocin towards the last hour or two. You can add it into psilocybin. I wouldn't do it initially, but maybe midpoint or later. It's safe to add, I would say, to the majority of the plant medicine and synthetic molecules without any kind of drug interactions. So, great one to consider.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, that really kind of opened my mind. I was like, well, that's a really interesting. So thank you for elaborating on that.
Yeah,
And
and I think I was just
go
going to say,
ahead.
for a woman to experience a different kind of orgasm is really a beautiful gift, and to be able to utilize it with tantric massage and allow her to experience that, I think is an amazing gift. So yeah, I encourage guys to do that. And for those people listening that are in a same sex relationship, I don't want to discriminate against people that are in a same sex relationship. I think that all these states can be achieved for them as well, so they can experiment and find their perfect alchemy as well.
Absolutely, right? We're all beings and have our own needs and sexuality, that kind of is a natural transition to sexuality. It's such a fundamental level of our own sense of self-worth and self-value. It's like not only relationship to um, how we can please our partners, uh, but also how we feel about our own selves as an identity. Do we love our own body and love our own existence? And when we really can find peace with who we are and love and joy with who we are as beings, then I think it's so much easier to be having positive sensual relationships with other people because we're doing that from a congruent state where we're really in tune and love our own body. Therefore we can love others without any dissonance. And
Yeah,
I think that these sacred molecules, I mean, I don't think they've really helped me understand my life so that I can show up in that way.
yeah, yeah. Same here, and I think for many, even having some opportunities for self pleasure while on some of these molecules is fine, particularly while you're in the early stages of psychedelic exploration. And then you kind of know what things are going to feel like before you're with your partner, and are able to gauge how things go. Yeah, I'm not against any of that either. The Dr. Ruth
Yeah.
open mindedness coming out of me here.
Well, we're the sacred being too, right? And we can know how we like to be touched and held and all of that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then we
So
can have clear communication and say, hey, I know that this works for me, so please do this, right? And learning how to be asking for what we need is another skill set in life that applies to many different disciplines, but for sure in
yeah,
sexuality, knowing how, like, hey, do that again or do this a little bit differently, and being really clear about that, and in
Yeah,
a way is a form of emotional intelligence.
that's one of the things I love again about MDMA. Um, my lover will be demanding. She'll be like, you know, sit on my butt and, glide across my back, or whatever, kind of random things. And it just comes through. This is what I want, and I want it now, But I love that because she's being open. She's telling me what she needs. And then I do the same thing. And I think in a normal conscious state, I would be shy to ask some of these crazy things,
Mhm,
and I may say, "Okay, I want you to sit on my face right now," something like that. And there's no filter, and in a way, it's beautiful not to have that filter because you're able to be in flow without this, second guessing of what you want and, "Oh, how is she gonna feel if I ask her to do this or that?" You're just able to be respectful and, if she's good with it, then stay in flow. Yeah,
mhm.
it's so much fun, and it's so playful, that's the other thing, so, I'll have elements where a song comes on, and we've got playlists, of course, for, all the different molecules, and I have what I call my heart medicine playlist, which is, for MDMA, and we'll dance naked, and sometimes we'll be dancing naked in the rain outside, up in the mountains, or, sometimes it's, just inside, it's just a playful moment. I feel like a child, and there's no inhibitions to the beautiful flow of energy through dance. And yeah, I just, as I said in the start of this conversation, I just want people to experience that raw, primal connection to yourself and to others and to nature. Yeah.
One thing that you say here, I really deeply resonate, which is that it's play. I there's a lot of people in the psychedelic realm, right, that talk about and trauma and trauma and trauma. And for me, like everything in life is a game. Who are we? What was our life history all about? But also like just playing in the real moment right in front of us. It's all play. Everything about it is play. And so I loved that aspect of your book compared to a lot of what's out there, which is this idea of, hey, let's just explore in this, in you know in play. There's a book written, Whole Brain Living, by a neuroscientist who had a stroke, and she described the brain as having four main characters. Character one looks at the body like a tool. It's the one that lets us like pay taxes and go to work. And character
Mhm.
two looks at it like a responsibility. It's like the fight or flight that keeps us safe. But character three looks at it like a toy, like our body's a toy. And character
Mhm.
four looks at our body like a temple for God. And so when
Mhm.
we have these sacred medicines and you play with characters three and four and you shut down characters one and two, you get this really beautiful shift of perception. And um, I think that, we're here on this planet largely to enjoy it.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, so when you have those last two things, the play and the temple, you create the set and setting for your temple. You set up your room with beautiful lighting, aromatherapy, scented lavender oil for tantric massage, the right music. You've created your temple, and now you can play and just be in love and be in this state of higher consciousness together and just be without an agenda, just let it flow. And I think we've lost that ability as humans. We're so structured and controlled and boxed in by everything, as you mentioned, whether it's the structure of paying bills, going to work, um, dealing with all the regulations and structure around us, but we need that playful element to be helpful. And how do we bring that back? And I think many people can do it, by just getting out in nature and hiking and exploring and being on the river, et cetera. And that's all good and nice, but I found that doesn't go deep enough. I think you really have to consider the option of psychedelics to completely go into that more child like space of unconditional playfulness, unconditional love, and fuck everything else that's going on around the world. I'm just gonna love these clouds that are floating over my head and love these trees that are hugging me from around the forest and kiss the flowers at my feet and just be in that primal state of what we were like when we were 3 or 4 years old running through the
Mhm.
forest.
Mhm.
We've been too overstructured and wired through the constraints of modern society, societal expectations, education, etc., to um, steer us away from that beautiful, blissful state. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and everything we know is vibration, right? Heat and light and everything is a form of vibration. And I liked in your book that idea of when you're in this heart open, connected state with your partner, like, and you're in such a unitive, open, vibrational state, using that as a prayer for the planet, for others. I thought that was a really beautiful way to use this with intention, was just to say, hey, we want this vibration, this connectedness, this energy to go out and ripple through the cosmos to
Hmm.
serve. Um, because I think it really works like that. I think that thoughts are things, and thoughts, I mean, we can see in some of these medicines that thoughts are the
Yeah.
levels of interconnectedness are so, the interconnectedness is so big and so beyond the rational mind's ability to comprehend that that's a real act of service. And
Right. And I think when we travel to these higher states of consciousness, we recognize that we are connected to all, all is one, one is all. And when you're in that state, you want to send love naturally to amplify the vibrational field around us in the local as well as the global, and even expand out into the realms of the universe and the edges of the universe. As I will often share with my partner, I'll say, Bella, let's just feel our hearts connecting as one. Let's feel this beautiful golden light radiating out from our hearts together, and let's ripple it to the edges of the universe to help other people connect to this field of love, and to help heal Mother Gaia, to help heal, everything from the small plants and organisms to every living element that surrounds us. And um, by sending that love, I think it all returns and reverberates to us in kind, um, to support us, right? So it's a win-win situation when we're altruistically sharing the light to the universe and everyone around us. And I think that the way society is framed now, it's all about, how can I be the winner and have another person be the loser, instead of looking at how can I help my fellow uh, mankind, humankind, in an altruistic way. And I think that only meditation, breath work, mindfulness, psychedelics allow us to flow into that path. Everything else seems to take us away from that. I even think religion, is too directed towards um, their particular, um, you know, needs of the church, et cetera, and doesn't look at the overall global perspective for the most part. They're self-serving. Um, so I would hope to see that be more all-encompassing.
yeah, I think that especially with these medicines and our own like integration of our reality, we can just transcend duality in observation. And then when we return to the sense of a separate self, like I fall and I scrape my knee, or I'm hungry,
Hmm.
like we still have these experiences of potentially of complete non-duality where there's like not even really a perceiver. And there's maybe only an energetic wave or web of the universe or however we perceive it. I think that after you experience those states, it's impossible to return back to the idea of a separate individual self. Like the hopefully the trajectory that we're aiming at as a species is towards not individuality, but to total self-honoring and interconnectedness, just the recognition that we are nature, that we are each other, that we are the thoughts we put out there, and everything affects everything. And so when we can really expand and live in that level, and so
Mhm.
for me, I do a lot of the medicine stuff, but again, I back it up with private practices in my mundane reality, like
Mhm.
morning silence and stillness, because these moments sometimes, although they might change you forever, you can still back it up with practices. And this whole book is also just about practice, right? It's about conscious exploration of non-duality with sacred medicines with your partner
Yeah.
or with your own self if you don't have a partner, or if you do and you want to just be on that vibration by yourself. Like, I think that's all beautiful. Everything is fair game to explore as long as it's consensual and you know, you set yourself up with a safe physical container so that you
Yeah.
know
Totally agree. Yeah, I kind of visualize, the God within all of us, kind of a collective consciousness. And I may have visions of Buddha, of Christ, different Hindu deities and all, and I see their beautiful wisdom and insights and the energy they contribute to the collective field, to the Akasha. And I embrace all that and I honor all of it. But I want to feel that everything is kind of within me and then expanded to be connected to all rather than having some religious doctrine telling me how that relationship should occur, right? So
Mhm.
it's a freeing opportunity from a spiritual standpoint to just have that element of the simple oneness, and I think that's truly where many of the great prophets were speaking as well.
Yeah, I've read maybe 700 or so books on what is truth and wisdom. I've really looked
Hmm.
at it from a huge spectrum of curiosity, and it's how I'm here holding space in medicine work and stuff, is because I've found that ancient doctrines that are just more essence level are more true,
Hmm.
because they they're just more fundamental.
Yeah,
And my observation is that no matter what it is, whether we're worshiping a single idea of a god or we're judging another person, the reality of it is that everything that we're thinking is the mind.
yeah.
Everything is our perception. So if we're worshiping God, we're recognizing the divinity of our own ability to perceive anything at all in the first place.
Hmm.
And if we're judging it, we're recognizing the ability of our mind to judge it. And
Yeah.
and so we can decide in this like perception of duality or unitive consciousness, we can decide where we want to resonate.
Hmm.
And it's just more useful in useful meaning like lowers stress, lowers cortisol, improves natural serotonin and dopamine, improves the
Yeah.
objective life of others by just being like more non-dual or more
Yeah.
unitive, and it's of service to all beings.
Right. And I think the psychedelics gives us the neuroplasticity, the open mindedness to appreciate the perspectives of different philosophies, different religions. So we're able to integrate and appreciate and um, you know blend some of those teachings into our overall spiritual self in a way that works for us individually. Uh, so
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's beautiful and how it opens us up to the possibilities that are out there.
for sure. So if there was somebody that's listening to this who hasn't read your book yet, um, that's that's new to sacred molecules and theoretically has access to all of these, how would you recommend starting for somebody?
I think the easiest entry point is psilocybin, because it's readily available in many states like Colorado. It's decriminalized, so you don't have to worry about the legal ramifications. And on that note, definitely to all the listeners, be very careful about your use of molecules in places where it's not legally allowed. So pay attention to um, you know what the ramifications may be if you fly into St. Petersburg, Russia, with anything, as Brittany Griner did, and whatnot. You really have to be smart about the risk assessment there. Um, but yeah, going back to it, psilocybin is nice because it's you can start low. You can experience the elements of psychedelic space on your own with your lover, and then go up on the dose um, based upon how you're feeling. And I think that is, in my opinion, a great entry point. Now, I have a lot of patients in my practice that are afraid of that, and they actually will come in and do ketamine in a controlled set and setting where we're able to do it in a way that is very not stressful, and gives them an opportunity to have a psychedelic experience. And oftentimes, after they've done a few sessions of ketamine, then they're ready to explore psilocybin on their own and some of the other molecules. So it depends on where you're at and what you'd like to achieve. Ketamine, for example, can be helpful for depression. So an individual that's really wanting to improve their mood and enjoy the psychedelic space and blissful travels can use that molecule. But others may just want to start with psilocybin. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I feel like some of these ones are clearly on a level of depth where you can start anywhere and there's no boundaries or limits to these, but I just wanted to ask from your
Yeah. And I mean, you
perspective.
could start with LSD, which is a pretty high level psychedelic, but it can definitely rock your world. And I think that's a tougher entry point. That would be a jump off the high dive into the pool versus dipping your foot in the pool with psilocybin at a gram, for example. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And one thing that I like that you put in the book, which I think is for me the easiest way is to lemon tech the psilocybin, which is just makes it a little easier. It's a little more consistent with how onset and peak visionary happens, and it's a little bit easier on the GI system. So I think that's
Yeah.
a really nice way to
Huge fan of lemon
consume.
teching. And I get weird side effects if I just do the raw mushroom. I'm kind of sensitive and I'll get more nausea and a little bit of hot and cold and all that. And the lemon tech really removes the majority of that. So that's why I've gone to that. And it's weird. I didn't used to get that. I've been using psilocybin for over 20, 30 years. And um, it's just been more recently I seem to be more sensitive to some of those issues. So it's weird. Maybe just a rewiring of me that's made me more sensitive to the element of the mushroom. You know.
Well, aging is real, right? And our bodies change. And so
Yeah.
part of all this too is just like honoring our reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, it could be age. It could be repetitive stimulation of neural tracks. Who knows?
Yeah. And one thing that you have in there with the tech is adding honey. And another thing that I think is really nice is just a little bit of ginger. So
Oh,
it's just
yeah, great. I'll have to add that in in the next edition. Yeah, I do recommend ginger. I even have it in my office here for clients that have nausea with the ketamine, and I think ginger is a great one to do. And they make those ginger um, candies that are pretty concentrated too, like a lozenge, and I'll
yeah.
utilize those quite a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, the other molecules that are mescaline derived can be amazing to work with your partners. Particularly San Pedro is one of my favorites, and it's readily available. The problem with peyote is it's a very sacred Native American um, cacti, and I've only done it in sacred circle with a road woman, who has access to that and holds it in that sacred space. But I think San Pedro can be held in a space with your lover that can allow you to enjoy nature in particular. And then, as the journey um, kind of comes near an end, it's a great plant medicine to be intimate with as well. And I definitely encourage people to consider some San Pedro work, on their in circle, and then eventually with their partner if they're able to find a good source for that. That's such an amazing plant medicine.
Yeah, definitely nature oriented.
Yeah. I mean, I will see auras of trees and flowers, and everything just becomes like a high definition, deeper color saturation, um, much like you'll get with LSD and mushrooms, but even more intense in terms of the auric value. So you'll really see this glowing nature, um, or glowing element in nature to the trees and flowers around you, and you'll want to hug the trees and and be one with nature for sure.
And another substance that I had never heard of before that was in your book was the PT 141.
Oh yeah, so PT-141 is a peptide. Peptides are 30 chain amino acid sequences, basically. A great example of the most common peptide is Ozempic that people are using for weight loss. Um, PT-141 is interesting. Uh, Melatonin is the other name for it. It will dramatically increase your libido. So if you or your partner have kind of a low libido and would like to enhance it, there's a nasal spray that can be utilized. There's injectable forms of PT 141, but I think the nasal spray is probably the easiest way to go. And that's where a functional medicine or a medicine or a physician that is well versed in sexual medicine can prescribe that. And the onset is about takes a little while, like a couple hours for it to really kick in. So it's one of those things where you're going to be like, okay, we're going to have fun around 6 tonight. I probably want to do a little nasal spray around 3, and you'll just feel this intense desire and passion for your lover. I think some of it is dopamine induced, but a lot of it is more deeper brain stimulation through the peptide. And for guys, it can really enhance erectile function. For guys that are struggling, it can be actually a treatment for erectile dysfunction. But for guys that just want to have, longer duration and more playtime, I think it can be a great tool for that. And for women, it can definitely help with their desire and their sexual responsiveness as well. I found I've done a little bit of R&D on it, and definitely intensifies the orgasms and intensifies the desire and the passion for one another. So it can be a nice adjunct that can also be added in while on a plant medicine journey or as a standalone.
And so because this thing has such a quite a long onset, would you suggest like if somebody was going to combine it with psilocybin, like on a tech, maybe like dosing at the same time so it's turning on towards the tailings of the psilocybin? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that would make great sense. You could absolutely do it at the same time. Um, and then for me with psilocybin, I found that I love to be in an intimate kind of position, probably at about 2 hours to 3 hours out, sometimes a little bit further. So, yeah, with that in mind, the PT-141 would synchronize well with all of that. So, um, yeah, I think that's a great one. I have not tried that. combo yet. I will report back to you. I've just done it, a la carte by itself, but yeah, it's these peptides are safe to use in combo with the plant medicines. Um, yeah, there's so many amazing things we can do when we look at some of the regenerative functional medicine peptides and hormones like oxytocin, as we discussed earlier, to enhancing the sexual experience. And when we say enhance, it's really about not so much enhancing, but deepening that experience and allowing us to feel that more intimate, loving connection to our partners. So um, I think that's an important thing for us to be able to do. And if we have the means to find a physician and add that into our toolkit of opportunities and the bedside table, I think it's a great one to have.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'd like to touch on something that you talk about in the book, but I think it's really at the fundamental level here of all of this exploration. One of the, I think, most critical and important parts of honoring ourselves and honoring our partner is being balanced human beings physiologically at all in the first place. So it's like coming to relationship with ourselves in honoring ways with our diet and our exercise and our balance between work and free time. Just this before we even talk about medicines showing up as like healthy and neutral of a being as possible. I think that's super important, and I'm glad you touched on that in the book.
Yeah, it's extremely important to maintain optimal nutrition, optimal exercise, lifestyle, mindful based practices, and to find that work life balance that isn't pumping our cortisol and our sympathetic overdrive so high that when we're ready to go into that space with our lover that we're just too tapped out, from an energetic level, and we can't be present for them. So we have to do our own work in the category of wellness to be there. And then sometimes there's some hormone balancing that needs to be done. So for those of you that are you know approaching 50 or beyond, oftentimes guys may need a little testosterone support. Women often benefit from both estrogen and testosterone as well as progesterone. And by balancing the hormones, the symphony of hormones, as I say, that can make you more sexually uh, responsive. You'll have more clitoral sensitivity, more libido. You'll definitely be able to, you know, uh, be in a more youthful space of um, sexual play when your hormones are balanced. So I definitely encourage people to keep that element balanced, unless they've got a history of um, horrible things like breast cancer or prostate cancer, then they need to stay clear of hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, right. There all of as with all of these things, there's calculated risks to be taken
Yeah.
for.
I
Yeah.
talk a little bit about, inflammation and mitochondrial function. And I mean, these could be totally separate books, but well, I always have to look for, inflammatory things that could be going on. So work with your doctor if you've got gut inflammation, dysbiosis, as we call it. People are suffering from fatigue, whether it's post-COVID or just feeling fatigued in general. There's a lot of things that can be done now in terms of improving energy. One of them is called NAD, which is a um, molecule derived from B3, and it basically powers your mitochondria through the Krebs cycle, and that can be done, as simple as taking a liquid called NMN or a capsule called NMN, or people can come in and do intravenous NAD therapy. And people over the age of 40 are going to start to see a pretty big drop in NAD levels. So boosting that can improve your sexual health, can improve your overall energy, your brain function, can even treat depression in pretty magical ways. And I will say that when I've done like an NAD IV infusion, that my responsiveness to psychedelics, particularly mushrooms, is much, much better. So I get more geometry, more vividness of color because I've ramped up the energy production in my brain to where it's able to um, respond more effectively to any of the serotonin stimulations like the 5-HTP 2A receptors, etc., um, through the enhancement of neurologic function through NAD. CoQ10 is another big mitochondrial booster. Yeah.
What's it called?
Coenzyme Q10. Um,
Got it.
CoQ10, you can buy that over the counter, like 100 milligrams a day. It's great.
Mm.
So yeah, I think there's, things that we can do dietary and I'm more of a fan of kind of a Mediterranean diet, but everybody, may have their own preference on being vegan, etc. But a well-balanced diet that is organic, not processed foods, and then supplementation as needed to help boost mitochondrial function to help reduce inflammation can be important as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Healthy fats, omega-3, avocado, MCT oil, etc. Key as well.
And and so with the work that you've done by writing this book and hearing feedback from people that have read it and how you work with people with ketamine, what are some of the challenges that you see people coming with around all of this, kind of as a broad question?
Challenges that in terms of mental health challenges when they're presenting to my office or challenges from the medicine itself.
I was saying just more in relationship to the actual primary topic of sacred sexuality and
Oh,
and the,
oh
and the
yeah.
psychedelics. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, great question. I would say that the challenge of finding the right dose, for example, psilocybin, can be a process, and sometimes you may find that you don't drop in as perfectly as you would like to, based upon the dosing. Sometimes it's too much, it's too little. So finding that kind of Goldilocks zone can be a real challenge. Um, Finding the time for each other can be a real challenge. So you have to be willing to say, okay, this Saturday, let's block it off and let's do our little MDMA psilocybin journey and prepare things, get some yummy snacks from the store, etc. So scheduling timing. I think there needs to be an element of spontaneity. From that playfulness factor. So being willing to be spontaneous with your partner can be a challenge in this crazy busy world that we're in. So encourage people to be spontaneous, to have some spontaneity in terms of, hey, let's just do it tonight instead of waiting until Saturday. That's always good. And then, yeah, we'll always have some rough journeys. Not every journey is beautiful and butterflies and flowers and jumping around dancing. Sometimes there can be some dark shit that comes in, and recognizing that that's just part of our growth and development, and being willing to hold space for each other when that happens, and then really being able to find time to integrate, and working with facilitators like yourself to help with that integration. And I definitely encourage couples to have someone from the outside if they're able to do that, financially, and they're interested in it, to help them integrate what's coming for them individually and as a couple, and and other global astral insights. So um, those are the challenges I see. Um, there's probably more than I'm not thinking of offhand,
I
but
think
yeah,
that's a beautiful set of realities, I think.
yeah. I think a lot of
What
people, they'll run into those stages where they're overstimulated. They've kind of got what we call psychomotor agitation, because they've taken too much LSD or MDMA, and that can be a real challenge. And I think you can look at things. I talk a little bit about it in the book. CBD without THC can help ground people out. Magnesium threonate, neuromag can help ground, and then breath, and then people kind of guiding their their partner through the process of, um, letting go of their anxiety and just trusting in the medicine and trusting that, the medicine is eventually going to clear the body and they'll be back, on the planet is a big part that we have to be prepared for and ready for. Yeah.
For sure. I study with a maestro, and the one of the biggest things is during onset, it's like we're just trying to down regulate that anxiety and that fear, and so that the visionary space can happen. And it is that let go, it is having these basic tools, breath work and feeling gravity, and kind of the bigger tool bag we have to pull from, the more successful we can be when we do have those inevitable resistances and challenges of being in the spaces. Um, and then also speaking back to the dose with the psilocybin, my recommendation there for anybody exploring this is pretty simple, which is um, to kind of homogenize your stock, if you're going
Hmm.
to use the lemon tech, and then and so, as versus like having one cap here and two stems here or whatever, just making the whole thing a homogeneous powder, and then you can have repeatable experiences with the same medicine.
That's a
Just makes it a
great,
lot more
great tip. Yeah. I just homogenize mine in a um, coffee grinder,
exactly.
coffee
Yeah.
bean grinder, and then I store it in a nice mason jar with some desiccant, and yeah, just scoop out the gram amount that I'm looking for in lemon tech. It's perfect.
Yep. Yeah, that's
Very
how I
good.
do it too. And the depending on the timeline of the storage, generally speaking, like a freshly dried mushroom has a little bit of a change from the psilocybin psilocin content in an initial like 30 days, but generally speaking, with like lab studies, it stabilizes. So um, if you have it for a while, after like the first month or so, it's going to be really, really consistent.
Yeah. How long do you think um, we can utilize like a powderized psilocybin formula that's been in a jar? Is it going to be good for a year? Or you
I
think?
think so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
keep mine in a dark, cool space, so it's not getting
That's the
any.
thing. Yeah. Yeah. Keep it dry, and you know, there's like that first breakdown of the transition where like the psilocybin and psilocin are moving around is largely just due to oxidizing. And I think that
Mhm.
after that process happens, it's kind of done, as long as you're not allowing contaminants. It's in the sealed jar in a dark, cool space. And um, I think it's quite stable. My experience is it's very stable.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on refrigeration? Is that a bad thing
I
to
don't do
do?
it. I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it's necessary. Plus, there's more humidity in a fridge, so I feel
Right.
like
And
it's
then
just
you
not
open it,
necessary.
it could condensate as you open
Mhm.
up the jar and create fungal overgrowth or something. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, that's great tips for the listeners and for me.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
uh,
Um,
trying to think of other things we may want to touch base on. The the element of setting. I talk a lot about in the book, and I think it's so nice to talk with your lover about what you'd like to create on a particular journey, particularly in terms of yummy snacks. Maybe it could be, some honey on the bedside table that you want to drip on her. Um, and again, I think aromatherapy can be really helpful. The music, so dialing that in can really enhance your journeys together. And that way, once you're dropped in, you've got everything that you need to enjoy and explore. Um, Sometimes we'll even deploy some fun sex toys. It's kind of a kinky subject, but that can be a great thing as you get a little bit further along in your experimentation with your lover. Um, Sometimes I'll even have some play where we may do some bondage, and there's that element of vulnerability and trust. And while you're on the medicine, it ups it a few more notches. Again, you set your boundaries ahead of time, and you don't hurt each other, but you kind of tease each other, and that can be a really fun space, particularly as my lover will just tease me to the verge of orgasm for, you know, an hour or two, and, and I can't do anything as I'm tied up. That can be, kind of a fun experience for many that, if you're into that kink a little bit, you can put that into your set and setting
Sure.
opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. I think on the fun side, prepare, but also on the practical side, it's important. So like sometimes journeys are challenging. So having basic setup, trash cans, tissues, um, having the space free of like sharp corners as much as possible. Just
Yeah.
make
Oh, very much
like
so, because you
setting.
can very easily trip and fall if you're not being cognizant of that.
Yeah, so
Um,
setting up your space as a reality for both the joyfulness, but also just to keep your physiology safe, I think
mhm.
is it's a really important part of the setting. You know, it's simple to do, and it's not, and it can make a big difference on the outcome if there is a little issue with the body mobility or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll oftentimes place crystals on my partner that can be very energy balancing and can enhance the experience. Um, we've done a lot of journeys in got a big bathtub, and we'll just sit in there. You definitely don't want to make your bathtub so deep that if you were to pass out, you'd drown, right? But just enough water to where you can safely be in that beautiful embryonic flow of water. That
For
can be
sure, 10 out of 10 on having a hot bathtub with a bath bomb or something. That can be really, really
so good,
nice.
right? I did one a couple of weeks ago with her, and God, I think we were in the tub for 3 hours. Talk about being a little shriveled up. So, yeah, that can be a great adjunct to set and setting for sure. Um, yeah, and
Like you're
then
saying though, like speaking to the whole thing though, like the broad stroke that you talk about in the book is we have all these senses, and so to kind of give ourselves tools in each sense, I think that's
yeah,
really make sure the space is clean and smells,
yeah,
and even bringing various scents throughout the time just to play with, and in the in like the tantric class that I did, just being playful with all this stuff, and depending on where you're at with the medicine and the journey, like blindfold and just surprise snacks where you can, tease and taste, and same
yeah,
with different textures, and just have it gamify it, right? Just play. It's all play.
yeah, it's super fun. Oh, here's a fun one I forgot to mention. My partner came up with this idea of doing slippy slide. And so what we'll do is we'll put a shower curtain down, and then we'll coat ourselves in coconut oil. This is during an MDMA journey, and we're super activated. And I'll just lie face down, and she'll just slide her yoni up and down my back, and that's super pleasurable to her, and crazy pleasurable to me as well. We'll even do this thing I call root lock, where we basically connect our perineums, the space between the scrotum and the anus and her vagina and anus. We just kind of interlock, and we'll feel that Kundalini flow is kind of a technique. And then we'll just kind of flow that energy in a playful tantric way as we're covered in coconut oil, for 2 hours. It's just a blast, much better than mud wrestling, right? So another tip, just be careful, if you've got the coconut oil on your feet and you're getting up to walk around on a slippery tile or hardwood floor, So have that towel to wipe your feet clean before you head to the bathroom, or you're gonna track up the floor, etc.
I
Anyway,
love that. I love that. And it's in my mind, I feel like that note is a beautiful way, that image and that offering to kind of end our conversation here. I think we've covered a lot of really beautiful,
yeah,
beautiful topics and different spaces. And um,
the pearl of the
I
day
really
is
want to,
slippery slide.
that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Put down a shower curtain and slide around. I love that.
Go big, at least
I,
150 milligrams.
and I really want to just thank you for one, taking the time to be here to speak with me and the audience, and also that you wrote this book and have been so open-minded in your life to play and to find out what works and what doesn't work for you, and to kind of offer your experience out there to the people. So
Oh,
very cool.
thanks, Aaron. Definitely appreciate everything that you're doing on this planet, facilitating and getting the word out. I think it's this collective nature of what you and I are doing to help people connect to love and bliss and oneness is going to hopefully change and shape our planet in a much more healing way and give us that sustainability to be here, hopefully for thousands, if not millions of years more. So wishing you the best in your endeavors, and happy to do another podcast on same topic, whatever topic in this realm comes to you. It'd be great.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, brother. You having a
Of course.
amazing week, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds great.
And
You too.
for people that want to learn about the book, they can just go to psychedelic sacredsexuality.com, and all the information's there. A lot of good tips and videos, and links if you want to get the ebook or the regular book on Amazon. So short little plug
And
there.
and of course, then I'll have all the links posted, because
Oh,
then people
perfect.
can find you. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
So
awesomeness. All right, thanks, brother.
thank you.
Well, take care, everybody.
You too. Bye bye.